Hey everybody, welcome to Wager Talk for the weekend of January 26th through the 28th. Scott Spreitzer here, joined in studio by Dave Cokin and the newest member of the Wager Talk roster, none other than Brady Kannon. Brady, it's great to have you on board and on the show. We're looking forward to working with you for some time to come and having you on a lot of these podcasts, especially when it comes to the PGA. Folks, Marco's off this week. He's going to be back next week as we close in on Super Bowl 52. Tonight we're going to talk a little Super Bowl, some props, maybe one or two or whatever from each guy coming up in a bit. But we start, as always, by going behind the counter at CGT Sportsbooks with Matthew Holt. Earlier today on the Las Vegas Sports Line, ESPN Las Vegas, Dave and I had a chance to catch up with Matt, and he updated us not only on the betting handle in Super Bowl 52 at CGT, but also gave us a few UFC picks for this weekend's Fight on Fox card. Here it is.
Right now, it's time to go behind the counter with Matt Holt from CG Technology. Matthew, how are you?
Hey guys, how we doing today?
How's it going, Matt?
We're doing fine. Getting excited about what's happening with the Super Bowl. Of course, the big money is starting to get fired in. A lot of it apparently on the Eagles. We've got side total getting action, and now the props are up as well. Yeah,
we put up about the first 60 yesterday. We're going to put up probably about the next 100 or 50 or so player props, so that we'll have, we put up the first 60 game props yesterday, put up about 150 player props tonight, and including about probably 20 to 25 cross-sport props, and then we'll put the rest of them up this weekend. But it's a load to carry this week when you start talking about making 300, 400 props and trying to make as many unique as you can, and the amount of money that you actually take on them. Pricing really becomes an issue.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot more sharp prop players out there than there used to be, people who pay a lot of attention to this stuff. So let's check out where the side and total are right now, and tell us about the props that are drawing the early action.
Yeah, we're still 5-48. We're back to $2 on the money line as we finally started to see that little bit of wave of Patriots money coming back and some Patriots money line bets. We just took another $40K Patriots money line bet. So, we're starting to see that Patriots money come back. For a while, our ticket count was over 2-1 on the Eagles, and it's still 3 times more dollars wagered on the Eagles over the counter. But now the Patriots money on account, the sharper players starting to come back on the Patriots, and we're about 1.5 times more dollars wagered on the Patriots on account on the spread bets, 2 times more dollars wagered on account on the Patriots money line bets. So finally that Patriots money starting to come in after a pretty much 48-hour wave of Eagles action.
Got to ask you if you're getting any action yet on your Vegas Golden Knight props, because they're obviously going to be awfully popular come Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have about 6 of them. We're putting six more up tonight. Vegas Golden Knights goals versus Patriots touchdowns scored. Vegas Golden Knights goals versus Brady touchdowns. We're doing a bunch of Vegas Golden Knights one, and for obvious reasons, right? I mean, this city's entranced with Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas Golden Knights versus Patriots field goals. We're going to do a whole bunch of Vegas Golden Knights stuff. Now, we actually have some great NBA players playing on that Super Bowl Sunday, too. Russell Westbrook, Kyrie, the Greek Freak, DeMar DeRozan. So we're going to have plenty of crossover sport props available this year. I mean, I remember last year we had to go to Saturday to get some Golden State and some good NBA crossover. Not this year. Plenty of guys playing on Super Bowl Sunday, so we'll have plenty of crossover sports.
We're going to talk about UFC in just a bit. You got this card coming up this weekend on Saturday night, and you were phenomenal last week. I think you swept the card on the plays you gave us on the Las Vegas Sports Line last Thursday. So there's a February 3rd card, Machida Anders at the top, UFC Fight Night 125. With you being so involved with UFC, knowing this so well from both behind the counter and in front of it, have you tied any Saturday night UFC props to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we're going to do total rounds completed in the main event, Machida versus Anders versus total Patriots touchdown scored, and we're probably going to key a couple of in. The problem is, just like last year, we ran into the same thing. It's not exactly the most high-profile UFC event this year tagged on Super Bowl weekend.
No. What about the early action on props? Has anything stood out so far among the players as one they appear to like?
No, we're not really getting hammered anywhere yet. So it's interesting. We're seeing some of the things that you expect to see, like some of the more long shots for the MVP we've taken action on. Player to score first touchdown. We've seen some action on some long shots there, like Rex Burkhead at 20-1. Philip Dorsett at like 35 to 1. I remember we took a fairly substantial bet on Fletcher Cox, even the defensive lineman for the Eagles, at 75 to 1. So we went down to 55. Took a pretty good sized bet on Nelson Aguilar, I think around 15 or 20 to 1. So, you know, those bets, you take a couple $100 at 55 to 1 and they start adding up quick. You know, when you're taking $200-$300 bets on those. But we really haven't seen a wave yet. The action's been really spread out. The alternate spreads are fairly popular. We're seeing people lay the big numbers with the Patriots already, and some people even doing the reverse ones. We're taking Philadelphia minus 3.5 or Philadelphia even minus 7.5 at, you know, like a plus 800 kind of number. So basically it's what you'd expect to see so far. Tourist dollars coming in, trying to risk that, you know, $20 to $500 to make a, you know, to try to get a little bit of a score out of it.
Matt, I got to ask you a quick question. I don't know if you have any numbers up on him yet. I'm guessing you do, and maybe you can find it while I'm asking the question. But LeGarrette Blount, his MVP numbers, and I had a buddy of mine send this to me in the last 24 hours asking me, you know, what LeGarrette Blount's chances or odds are on winning the MVP. And I thought it was not a bad idea for the price that it was offshore at the time, by the way. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking my buddy made a good argument. He said, you know, it's been over 20 years since a running back has won the MVP in the Super Bowl, but this team is going to want to keep New England's offense off the field. And if they can get the running game going early, you would think Philly has success, and that might be part of their game plan.
Yeah, and I think we were at 35 to 1 on them. We actually did take a couple of small bets. I think we took like a $50 and $100 bet on LeGarrette Blount, actually, and you know, I think there's some interest in him because he was on the Patriots team last year and he scored so many touchdowns for that Patriots team last year that there certainly has been a little betting interest in there. Last time I looked, I think he was 35 to 1.
Matt Holt is back with us right now to preview what's going to happen this week, and this is not what we call a banner card. I mean, it's not a big headline-making card, Matt, but listen, there's still betting action on it, and whenever there's a UFC card, there's always lots of volume.
Yeah, absolutely. And the main event on this one's actually doing pretty good handle. Jacare Souza versus Derek Brunson. Winner here probably going to get a UFC middleweight title shot, or at least be in contention right there to do so. You know, this one opened around 155, 160 with Jacare. Down to about 140 is a lot of love here from bettors on the underdog Derek Brunson, and for good reason. Look, he's been on a roll lately. He has huge knockout power, as we saw as he knocked out Lyoto Machida in his last fight. And Jacare Souza is starting to get old, almost 40 years old, so
That's
a lot of people going with the younger fighter here in the rematch spot. I can't say I blame him, although with the price starting to get so low, I think this one's probably going to be a pass for me.
Have to ask you about a fight down the card a ways before we get your official plays. Vince Pichel matched up against Silva. Silva about a $1.20 favorite at CGT at last check, and it's probably a close fight for a while, Matt, maybe till the very end, maybe a little back and forth. Silva's the up-and-comer, 10-0 record in his MMA career, and feels a little undervalued still to me, Matt, but I'm just wondering, before I pull the trigger, I go to you when it comes to the MMA, if Pichel's experience is a little too much for Silva.
Yeah, and I actually like Silva here. A little bit. Pichel at 35 years old, I think he's had a good run, but when you look at the guys he's beat, Damian Brown, who's like barely a 500 guy, Joaquim Silva actually beat some tough guys. Andrew Holbrook's a tough guy. He knocked him out. Reza Madadi is a heck of a tough fighter. He beat him, so I'm actually impressed with him. He's not one, you know, he's 10-0, but he's not 21 years old either. He's 28. He trains at a great gym in Brazil. I'm actually a fan of Silva, and look, if you shop around, you could probably get him at even money. A lot of shops are at about Pichel 120. I mean, basically, if you look up and down the screen, you'll see you could see either guy favored from 110 to 120, depending on where you're shopping. So you can certainly get even money on Joaquim Silva, and I'm going with the young buck in this one. I'm
glad to hear you're on him, because the last couple of times I've thrown a fighter out there that I liked, and you've agreed with it. It's gotten the win. That's an early card fight for those who are looking to get involved in that one. Give us a couple that you're going to be on this week besides that one.
Look, it's a really tough card this week because of the amount of big favorites and because of the amount of women's fight. With, you know, the UFC just opened another women's division, the 125-pound division, so they have 115, 125, 135, 145 in the women's division, and the 125 and 145-pound divisions don't really have a very deep talent pool yet, so they're trying to bring a lot of these fighters over here. We see a lot of fighters with only one fight. I'm only playing one of the women's fights, and that's Randa Marcos against Juliana Lima, and I'm going to take Lima here at plus 140. I thought these two were really, really similar in style and resume, and I think you could make a case looking at Juliana Lima's resume. Her losses are to Tisha Torres, the number one contender for the strawweight title, Carla Esparza, the former strawweight champion of the world, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the former strawweight champion of the world. And she owns a win over J.J. Aldrich, who just got a win on the last pay-per-view card. So Juliana Lima at 35, maybe she's on the wrong side of the mountain at this point, but her resume's really strong, and at an underdog price, I'm going to go ahead and take a shot with her.
That, of course, the voice of Matthew Holt. You can follow him on Twitter at MatthewHoltVP. Just a heads up, Dave, Matt Humans, and Todd Furman. We're going to shoot videos with Matt Holt and I this coming Tuesday, Super Bowl 52 Roundtable. No stones left unturned. The videos will be posted at WagerTalk on Tuesday night. When we come back, we're going to hold a little roundtable ourselves. Stick around, talking about the Super Bowl. Up next, we are WagerTalk.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Wager Talk. Scott Spreitzer with Dave Cokin and Brady Kannon. Big key matchups in Saturday's college basketball. We're going to talk about a few of those in just a bit. But right now we jump into Super Bowl 52. The New England Patriots have been as high as a 6-point favorite. They're 4.5 and 5 as we speak. The total right around 48. Looks like the 47.5s are gone. I've even seen some 48.5s Thursday afternoon. Brady, the what if or look ahead line, if you will, was New England 7 on this particular matchup before last week's games were played, and Johnny Avello told Patrick Everson of Covers that he kind of flirted with opening this number around 6.5, even 7, and then of course he thought with the adjustment made because of Gronk and the concussion, Gronkowski possibly being out, and just seeing the actual reaction of some bettors looking to jump in on Philadelphia, he decided to open that number down a little bit. Do you agree or disagree with this number being opened around 4.5 or 5, which is where it is right now?
I agree. I actually made the number 4, and I think people not only are reacting to Philadelphia's performance that was tremendous over a very strong Minnesota team, but I think if you take a closer look, it's easy to react to Philadelphia and how they won handily, but I think if you take a closer look at the New England game, people see that they were really manhandled by Jacksonville, certainly for the first half. Jacksonville, a lot like Atlanta, kind of blew that game. They took their foot off the gas in the second half. The Patriots got a couple calls like they always do, and I'm not blaming that really in any way, but I think Jacksonville had that game to win and really almost lost it as much as the Patriots went out and took it from them. So I think the Patriots may have dropped a little bit in value because of that, and then the way Philadelphia won probably ascended their value a little bit, and there you have it, a line a little bit lower than 7 or 6.5.
We might see 6. They're saying, I don't know about that, but we might see a 6, not only because the public jumps in so heavy on the public as we get closer to game time, Dave, but also because when it is finally announced that Gronkowski is going to play, it might inch it up a half a point.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. The interesting thing here is that my number, my power ratings, as almost always, indicate that the line is too high on New England. But that's the thing. There is no team I've ever seen in any sport for this elongated period of time that has outperformed their metrics like the New England Patriots. They're the opposite of the Cleveland Browns. In every way, because the Browns, part of this thing, and I'm not saying that to be funny, I'm dead serious. All year long, the last 2 seasons, in fact, we've seen the metrics guys consistently playing the Cleveland Browns because the numbers are too high. And the metrics indicate they should be more competitive than that. And they keep on losing their money week after week after week. It's the opposite with the Patriots. And I've learned the hard way, I'll admit, although it didn't happen to me this year, but it did in the past couple of years. It's like, well, this number's too high. I have to take the value here and go against the Patriots. And then at the end of the game, I have a loser. And that exists again here, because the right line in this game the true line, I should say, not the right betting line, but the true line on power ratings is more like 3.5 or 4. It's a really close game. But the value just doesn't appeal to me because of the fact that I know what happens in Patriots games.
Well, you make a great point with the true line versus the betting line.
Right.
I make the true line at 4. Okay, 3.5, 4. Got to be in that neighborhood. But like you say, all season long, the bookmakers, they couldn't even inflate that number enough to protect themselves. You know, the Patriots, like you say, they just kept winning, outperforming their metrics, outperforming expectations, an incredible juggernaut. And that's why probably, you know, if this number continues to come down, I expect it to go back up before game time.
I want to talk about one other thing, and I know people are going to do it. It drives me nuts because they're just getting so much the worst of it, but they do it anyway. And that's the Eagles money line bet. It's a terrible bet. Okay? I don't care if you win or not. It's a terrible bet. You're getting completely jobbed on the value. The value on the money line, and we're just talking value, is the Patriots.
Right.
Because based on, if the line's 5.5, the right money line, and using a 40-cent spread, the right money line is minus 250 plus 210. Mm-hmm. Well, it was nowhere near that.
It was like $2, $2.10 or something like that. Yeah.
So, but it doesn't matter because the public is going to come in. The public that likes the Eagles in this game, they're going to come in and they're going to bet the money line, even though they're getting the worst of it.
Well, we heard just in the last couple of days, Jay Rood announced it on VSiN, on one of the shows on VSiN, that they were negotiating to have an 8-figure bet around $10 million on the Eagles. We found out, I believe it was on Thursday morning or maybe it was Wednesday night, that they did end up taking a several $million wager on the Eagles. What we haven't found out is the exact number. We've heard it's around $3 million. We didn't find out. They wouldn't let us know if it was a money line play on the Eagles or if it was the point spread.
I'd be shocked if it's a money line play.
I would think somebody
this guy's
that
pretty sharp.
Yeah,
right.
And I don't think he's going to get the worst of it like that.
I happen to agree with that. I did see, now didn't he lose in the UFC handily last week? And we're talking, well, for him, maybe not handily, but I heard it was around $600,000 that he lost on Francis Ngannou last week.
Clearly was not
in the
listening.
UFC.
He didn't listen to our show when Matt Holt was on.
He did not listen to the show with Matt Holt, and he was on the wrong side. But again, it's interesting stuff, and hopefully eventually we'll find out exactly where he placed his money, what number he got. But we did also see on Thursday late afternoon in some spots around town, I think Matt Holt might have mentioned it to us on the earlier segment, he mentioned that they are starting to finally get some New England money now, finally. So
I think
we'll
a lot of the
continues.
New England bettors are waiting to see what the status of Gronkowski is, don't you?
I think so. I mean,
Absolutely.
I assume he's going to play, but I think you have to kind of wait if you're going to back New England at this point.
Look, and he's on the injury report right now. So,
Sure.
You know.
I mean, they did it. They did it against a Jacksonville defense without him last week, which was pretty impressive. But
you know what? I'm gonna echo what you said. I know it's the Patriots and they find ways to win, but I thought Jacksonville really, they just
They had him.
They kind of choked
had him
in the second half. They
kind of got scared to win. You know, they were like, "We're in this position. Oh my goodness!" You know, and here come the Patriots, and we're going to grab you by the neck, and we're going to show you how we do it.
Yeah, the Jags didn't fall apart. It was just they were scared to do what you got to do to win a football game, like you just mentioned. Dave, I know you were pretty much locked in to what you're doing for this particular game. Do you care to share what you did before last week's games and what you're doing for the contest?
And it's interesting. Jim Feist and myself had a discussion on this, and it's like this is a really good bet right here. We both decided the smartest move was last Friday. I think it was last Friday. We grabbed the Patriots to win the Super Bowl money line. About even money, maybe minus 110. Some places I think had plus 110. It was as high as minus 130 in some spots, but you shop around for the best number. It was roughly even money or minus 105, minus 110. That to me was a smart bet because assuming the Eagles beat Jacksonville, the Patriots beat Jacksonville, they're clearly going to be the favorite in the Super Bowl. Even if it was Minnesota, they'd have been about 2.5 or 3, and if the Eagles, it's going to be around 6. So if they can I'm basically betting that they can beat Jacksonville at even money. And if they do that, I'm going to have a great middling opportunity in the Super Bowl. I'm done, basically, with my primary bets. I've got a full 1-unit bet on the Patriots, I've got them at even money to win. And I've got the Eagles plus 6 because I took that Sunday night. I didn't get the 7 that was out there for a few minutes, but I got 6. What a nice middle this is.
Okay.
It's a really good bet, and I kind of have a very similar situation, but a polar opposite. Going into the championship games, I made the same bet on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl at 6-1. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is probably wait until that public gets involved, betting that Eagles money line, taking the Patriots money line down as low as I can find it, and go the other way that way.
I'm just hoping the Patriots win by 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
and
it's going to be a real nice Sunday.
I would take that as well.
Look, it's the same thing I did a few years ago in the Steelers-Cardinals, where I bet the Steelers the week before, or a few days before the conference championship game, and thinking, well, they're going to get to the Super Bowl, and they're going to be favored over Arizona, and then I can come back, or they're going to be favored over whoever they get in against, and it turned out to be Arizona. And that great Roethlisberger drive late in the game, Steelers win but don't cover, and I cashed both tickets. I was the only one at Ruth's Chris that day that was smiling, I think.
And I'll tell you who I'm on, and we'll talk to Marco about who he's on, and we'll get even more in-depth on the matchup itself, not only on Tuesday with the videos that we're cutting with Matt Humans, Matt Holt, and Todd Furman, but also next Thursday night when we're a little bit closer to game time. But props galore up and down the strip. Now, I really haven't had a chance. We're cutting this on Thursday night, January 25th, and it's about 6 p.m. as we speak Pacific time. And I really haven't had a chance to really handicap and jump into the props yet, the local Las Vegas, State of Nevada props, because they really just started to come pouring in this morning and today. In fact, I got about 13 pages of props emailed to me by Michael G. and the boys over at William Hill. Sent those to me a little bit earlier today. Haven't really been able to jump in on them yet. There was one, though, Brady, that I mentioned this to Matt Holt a little bit earlier, and I had a buddy of mine send this to me, and he told me he saw a write-up on another site, and he agreed with it. He sent it to me, and I do kind of like it as a small play, but it's about 35-1. And it's LeGarrette Blount for MVP. And it's been forever since a running back has won the MVP in the Super Bowl. And you obviously know that you've got a real good head start in the Super Bowl for MVP with the quarterback position, no matter who wins the game. But because Philadelphia wants to keep the New England offense on the sideline, if they're able to start the game and find a running game early with a very good run-blocking offensive line against a New England defense that's bottom third in the league against the run, they're going to keep feeding LeGarrette Blount the ball if it works early, and that means he's going to get a chance to gain a good, decent amount of yardage, carrying the ball maybe upwards of 20 times in this game if it's working early. And at 35-1, I don't think that's a bad play.
Well, even if Ajayi carries the ball between the 20s and they give it to LeGarrette Blount when they're in the red zone, he could have 3 touchdowns on the day, and again, cash that ticket.
Carries, maybe.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that one, Dave, or any other props that you're looking at so far?
No, I'm not a big prop guy, first of all, but I'll probably have fun with them. But I don't take it as seriously as some people because I just don't. But I'm sure I'll have something for the videos that we shoot next week.
The round table for sure.
But now I'm kind of just sitting back.
I usually have about 5 or 7 by the time the game kicks off.
I primarily do them for fun myself, Dave, and I just put very little money on, and I probably do 20 to 30 of them, so I've got action throughout the entire game. I'm typically not heavily invested in the Super Bowl. I made some good money last week on those 2 games, and the Super Bowl for me is entertainment and to have, watching how many tackles has this guy made and how many sacks. But again, I handicap the game completely, and that's the way I play my props. That vision that I have of the way the game is going to play out is kind of the way I will play to my props.
Best prop I've seen, by the way, is, and I'm not sure how this works because it looks like an obvious winner, but it's how many times, and it's worded this way, so I wonder how many times during the broadcast will Dilly get mentioned.
That's good.
I think it's 12 and a half or something like that. Well, if you count the times it's mentioned in the commercial.
It's about 6 times in one commercial, isn't it?
But the way it's worded, it says during the broadcast.
So it'd have to be like an announcer, or
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see. That's why you have to check the rules.
There's all that stuff.
Check the rules with whatever you're betting.
The offshores, I've seen it. Well, they mentioned nipple slip because Justin Timberlake is doing the halftime show.
Yep.
I've heard them all. I don't make as many bets as you. I mean, it's all basically for fun.
Yeah.
And I think I've been doing this professionally now for about 27 years. Let's say 27 Super Bowls, and I've probably bet on maybe 19 or 20 of those 27 Super Bowls. I don't bet every single Super Bowl, and a lot of times it's just fun money, just to have some interest. But I do know some guys who have run all over the state looking for the best props that'll have 24 props. And I'll never forget that Denver Super Bowl a couple of years ago when there was a safety, and it just started blowing everything up for those guys.
One of the WagerTalk guys is Brian Leonard, and he's really good at this stuff.
He always has about at least 15, 20
And he really breaks it down.
Oh, yeah.
So, if he puts props up at WagerTalk, buy him because you'll make some money on them in all likelihood. Pink, over and under on the
2 minutes, 120 seconds.
What do you think?
I'm going to go under.
Okay.
It's 118.6 seconds. That's the average Super Bowl national anthem.
Good number.
But here you go. See, what he's got on his side here is that's over the last 12, 118.6 seconds on average. You've also got to throw into the mix that, what's her name? I always like to call her Alicia Off-Keys because I have heard her live. It wasn't good. But she took 155 seconds in the Super Bowl that she sung the national anthem at.
How do you take that long?
Oh, boy, you got to be holding on to some notes for a while there. And there was probably, I can't remember, but it seems to me like there was a little piano interlude in between a couple of the lines.
A sandwich or something.
It could be. Or she was trying to find the right key throughout the tune. But the bottom line is that kind of throws off that 118.6 seconds average over the last dozen national anthems.
I just see Pink as a little bit more
quicker.
of a faster-paced singer. I'll tell you something that you can kind of chew on if you want to try some first-quarter props. Under Bill Belichick, the Patriots have never scored a point in the first quarter in their Super Bowls. And so you can look at playing under first quarter, or maybe the first score of the game will be a field goal or a safety.
An interesting thing on the total is I think under first half
right?
Might be a winner, even though I like over for the
or under first quarter, So, I mean, there's a lot of different bets you can make off of that fact, props or, actual off-the-board wagers.
It's funny, Big Al McMorty, a good friend of mine. I don't know if you know him, Brady. I know Dave knows him well. We've worked with Al. He's been a good friend of mine for about 15 years now. We were just talking on the phone the other day, and he goes, I've heard now for the second straight year about how the Patriots never score the first. He goes, I'm betting it over. He goes, I'm betting it over.
Yeah.
I'm betting that first quarter over. I don't care. I'm tired of hearing about it. And, when Joe Blow, and no offense, but in Dubuque, I'll say Omaha because that's my hometown. I can make fun of Omaha. But when they say when Joe Blow down the street from you in your hometown knows all about it, that's the time you want to start playing the other side, because there is a little bit of an adjustment on the value by the bookmakers knowing that. So it'll be interesting. I haven't decided if I'm going to get in on that first quarter prop or when the Patriots are going to score in the whole shebang. But again, we'll be talking about a lot more props. And my advice to the people who want to bet props, stay away from the silly stuff if you're doing more than just looking to have fun. If you're looking to have fun, go for it. But also find props on the sheet, and there's a whole bunch of them, 300 in every book it seems like, where you tie it in, you don't tie it into who necessarily has to win the football game. So you're always almost alive, no matter who's ahead, no matter who's behind, no matter how big the score is as far as the margin is concerned. You've always got to have something running to where if you were wrong on who you think's going to win the football game, you still got a shot to win some of those props.
And we know some props where the house is going to have some kind of a liability among locals, in fact, and those are the crossover props involving the Vegas Golden Knights.
There you go.
They're getting killed with Golden Knights action every time they play, so they're going to be heavy on the whatever football versus Golden Knights. They're going to be betting Golden Knights like crazy.
They got a chance to. I'm going to say that they got a chance to maybe make some money off the locals with that crossover wager. And I'll tell you why. The Golden Knights are playing at DC against the Capitals in that game. Caps with a little bit of revenge, right? They lost to them here.
Yep.
And then you might not have Marc-Andre Fleury. We'll have to see if he's going, because it will be their fourth, if I remember right, their fourth road game in 6 days when they play at the Caps. And I'll look up that in the break and make sure that was the case. But if that is the case, and maybe you have Malcolm Subban on the ice, these props have already been set before this road trip takes place. Subban, and we're nitpicking because I love Malcolm Subban. He's a great backup, but he's having a problem clutching that puck with his glove hand. He's given up a lot of ricochets, a lot of second shots, and we saw him in his last start. He was getting beat because of that. He was not clutching the puck. It was getting away. He was not covering it and forcing faceoffs. If he continues to play like that and he's going against DC, against the Capitals on Sunday, you never know, man. The books are going to take all Vegas Golden Knight money and those props. They could come out ahead in that particular prop. So it'll be fun to watch as we get closer to game time, who's going to be goalie and how the Knights are playing, the Golden Knights are playing leading into that game. All right, guys, let's take a quick time out. When we come back, there's a really nice card of college basketball games on Saturday, some real key matchups. We're going to talk about 3 of those. We're also going to talk about what's going on right now at the Farmers in the PGA. Brady Kannon is the man when it comes to the PGA, no doubt about it. We'll get his thoughts for the rest of the tourney and more. Stick around.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to Wager Talk. Scott Spreitzer here with Brady Kannon and Dave Cokin, and we're talking some Saturday college basketball. Got some key matchups taking place this weekend, and we're going to talk about 3 of those. First up, We got Virginia at Duke, and Dave, I've got this power-rated Duke 4.5, and Virginia, listen, man, this isn't your typical Tony Bennett team in that they can't produce offensively. They're still great on the defensive end, but they can shoot lights out at times, and they can cover when they're a favorite, as they did the other day, a big favorite at home against Clemson, laying 9.5. But anyway, in this particular game, they're on the road. Duke laying 4.5 as far as my power ratings. You agree with that? Are you about the same place?
I actually have it lower on my power ratings. I've got the game 2.
Okay.
So the line will come a little higher than that. So it's a little value, if you want to call it that, on power ratings on the Virginia side, although we're getting into the time of the season where I play situation and specific matchups more than just the power ratings. And in this game, what it's going to come down to, well, look, the obvious part is it's the number 1 efficiency defense in the country against the number 2 offensive efficiency in the country. And if you don't know which team is which, then you don't follow college basketball. The keys, you mentioned the threes for Virginia. They can step back and knock down threes. And one of the things that could be a really big factor in this game, and I think it's going to be a big factor come tournament time, this is not your normal Duke team at the foul line.
I was just going to mention that. That's the weakness.
They miss a lot of free throws. They're a very average free throw shooting team, actually less than 70% of the season. They've got to improve that if they want to be sticking around to play in the Final Four. I think it's going to be a really close game, and I know Virginia, it's funny, this is a Virginia team that I think was a little more under the radar in a sense than some other ones in the past couple of years. I think it's probably his best overall team. They're more balanced. They're playing the same defense that Bennett's teams always play, but they've got some guys who can put the ball in the basket.
We were talking about it earlier this week on the Las Vegas Sports Line, ESPN Las Vegas, when they were facing Clemson that particular night. We were talking about it earlier in the day, and that was either a best bet or a marquee matchup, but also had it at WagerTalk and had played the game. And, generally speaking, over the last couple of years since Tony Bennett's been there, it would be a situation where, boy, they're laying 9 or 10 points.
Yeah.
First team to 60 mentality. I know they're great on defense. I think I'll pass, when they're that kind of a point spread. But this year, it's like they, as Dave said, they can hit from the 3. They're a quality shooting basketball team. And even though they still have that against the better teams on their schedule, first team to 60 mentality in a lot of cases. The thing is, you don't mind laying that as much because they might hold that team to 40 points, as they did Clemson the other night, holding them to 36. Any thoughts on this game, Brady?
I think a big indicator will be this Duke game on Saturday for the possible future success of this Virginia team because, like you say, their defense has been so outstanding in the tournament, and it's gotten them a long way, but they haven't been able to break through against the big names in college basketball, the Kentuckys, the Dukes, the Villanovas, what have you. And like you say, Dave, I think this is the best team they've had in a while. We're going to see if they can get better in the tournament than they've done before.
I think it's a more important game for Virginia. I really do. I think they've got to, if they want to be stamped as a serious contender, they need to go on the road and beat a really good team. Well, here's your opportunity.
And if you're a Duke, you're in contention no matter what. So it is a bigger game for them. I like Devon Hall. I like Ty Jerome. They're both excellent dishers. They get everybody involved on the offensive end. It'll be interesting to see how Duke is able to handle 2 dishers, not just one, who are both quite capable of leading the offense for Virginia. Another ACC battle, Miami at Florida State. These teams met just a couple of weeks ago on January 7th. The Hurricanes won that game 80-74 at home. They jumped out early, if you'll remember, and led by 13 at the half, and they're about a 2-point home favorite in that game. And Dave, right now, I make Florida State about a 3.5. Well, not a spread, but a power rating, 3.5 points better than Miami in Tallahassee.
I have it 4.5 on the Seminoles. You've got the revenge situation. Same season revenge is a big factor in college basketball. I mean, you can't play them all. But I generally am going to look for the side that won the first meeting to possibly go against in the second meeting. I don't know if I'll do it here because I think the line's going to come right in that neighborhood. And in fact, because of the revenge, it's probably going to be inflated a bit. So I think even though we're 3.5 and 4.5, I have a feeling it's going to come like 5, somewhere in that range. And if it does, that's going to be enough to keep me out of the game. Florida State's pretty good. Their defense is better than I thought it would be this year. They're very athletic, as always. Miami's still the better defensive basketball team, and there are some real butts on this Miami squad. At times, their offense is just downright ugly. And we talked about Duke being a little bit subpar at the foul line. They're Rick Barrys. They're a bunch of Rick Barrys compared to Miami. Miami is one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country, and it really hasn't gotten much better, even with the onset of conference play. I mean, you can't shoot 65% from the line.
And I think it's less than that, isn't it?
It is.
Like 63%. Yeah.
It's just terrible. And I don't know how they fix that. They've just got their brick shooters at the foul line. I'm sure they make them in practice because it's not like they don't pay attention to this. And Larinaga's a solid basketball coach. He's not going to ignore it. But when the game starts, they just have a tendency to miss him. And that makes it really tough to back them in a game where late, even if they're ahead, they might get caught from behind because they can't make their foul shots.
And the line should be reasonable enough to where, you're kind of in it even if it's close with 4 or 5 minutes to go with Florida State, even if you lay those couple of buckets plus. It was a rough first half for Florida State, that first meeting. They were down by 13, as I said, at the break. Miami shot 51% for the game that night. I think you'll see a more concerted effort on the defensive end because of that in the rematch by Florida State. And I got to tell you, Brady, it's funny because I don't really worry about Leonard Hamilton messing things up until it gets to March. That's what I worry about, Leonard Hamilton messing things up.
Well, Dave makes a great point about same-season revenge, and that's really, all over the card right now. These teams, Colorado's in Arizona tonight, and on Saturday they'll take on Arizona State after just knocking both of them off in Boulder. So that same-season revenge, I think, creates a lot of great situational plays for you. And, one thing about Miami, they were just in a grueling overtime game last night, too, that they had to struggle to get the victory. So, they could be coming in a little bit tired legs to Saturday.
Kentucky's at West Virginia, a little Big 12 SEC clash. And, boy, I tell you, you power rate Bob Huggins' crew, I think, at least 4 points better than Kentucky on their home floor. 4 points is where I made this power rating. And I had to, look at it twice and make sure about this. Kentucky's young, and that's their only issue right now. Really the only place they struggle is in the assist-to-turnover category. You look up and down the roster, a lot of guys who don't have a big margin between what they dish out and what they turn over. That's a key issue when it comes to playing the Mountaineers.
This is a game where I think you got an in-game opportunity. I think that's going to be the best.
I like your idea already before you even explain it.
I want to find out how Kentucky handles the pressure. Because if they are a team that they've turned the ball over a lot this year. But if they're able to exploit or handle the pressure, they will then be able to exploit what is actually a pretty weak interior West Virginia defense that gives up a lot of easy looks. If you break the pressure, you're going to get 2 points. And that's what Calipari likes to do, because this particular Kentucky team pretty much acts like the three-point shot is illegal. You could say this is a 1970s style team, not in terms of their athleticism, but they play for 2 points. They can't shoot the three. They stink from outside, and they don't want it. They don't. If they have to shoot threes, they're in trouble. But if they break the press, they're not going to have to shoot threes. You can get easy baskets in transition against West Virginia if you can break the press. But if they can't, they're going to get run out of Morgantown. And you know that Huggins would like to do that. I have no explanation for what happened in the Kansas game. They had Kansas absolutely dead to rights in the first half, but they screwed up so many times on their own offensive sets, which is surprising because actually West Virginia has been fairly efficient offensively this year. They let Kansas hang around in that game and eventually blew it. But then you saw them next time out. I forget who it was they played at home, but they just crushed them. This is a tough spot for Kentucky because they're not familiar, and I know Kentucky goes into a lot of tough venues, but this place is really going to be rocking on Saturday.
Different. Yep.
And it is for a team that's not familiar. Even for a team that's familiar with it, it's tough enough. For a team that's not familiar with it, I don't know. For Las Vegas locals who've been here for a long time, it's kind of like the old days with UNLV, where it was just really intimidating for teams.
Do you remember when UNLV was at the top of the rankings and they went into Morgantown all those years ago? It's been, 27, 26 years ago? I mean, I was around in Vegas back then, and they got shell-shocked.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not any different now as far as the home court advantage with the crowd going berserk all 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's so to me, I mean, I think live is probably better because you can get a feel for the game early.
I like that.
But I full game, I'm going to have to side with West Virginia here. I think Kentucky could have problems in this game.
I would be with Dave. I mean, obviously Kentucky's down in what I think is a very strong SEC conference, but it's not top heavy. You know, they're crowded in the middle with a lot of good, solid teams. And then West Virginia, at TCU the other night, and they get drubbed over there. So I'm not sure which team is going to show up on either side of the ball here. But you guys do make a great point about playing in Morgantown. That's going to be a tough draw for the Wildcats.
Real quick question before we take a final timeout, before we go to a break, and then we'll come back and talk a little PGA update after day one. The quick question I had for you, Dave, is, Kentucky's always young because they always lose players early. And we always say, well, wait till Kentucky gets to March. Do you feel the same way about this Kentucky version? Neither do I. I was glad to hear you say that.
Because they're not this is not one of his best teams.
Right.
They just don't have the outside shooters, and you're going to have him come tournament time. You've got to be able to knock down threes. And if you look at the stats, I mean, Kentucky is they're shooting threes about as little as they can. They're a team that's got to earn their points in the paint. That's not the easiest way to go in the NCAA tournament. I have to mention this, by the way. The game's not over yet, but something absolutely shocking is taking place. I think actually it is over now. I got
a text from John in Detroit, who we're on a podcast right now, but I'll still say it nicely. He said, "You better get to an F in casino tonight after the podcast, after you won with Towson."
Well, I had a 2017 for the ages.
It's ridiculous.
In extra inning and overtime games. I mean, it was just an absolute train wreck. I can't even tell you. I can, but I don't want to tell you how many games I was under 500 in just an extra inning and overtime. And to have Towson tonight win by 14, laying 7 in overtime.
The tide is turning. The tide is turning.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Cokin and I on an overtime winner laying 7 points. You got to love
that.
Not
too shabby.
Listen, as Glenn McGrew, as my good friend and Dave's good friend Glenn McGrew once said, you got to handicap every minute and every second before you call it a night. And boy, did we do it there. All right, guys, let's take a quick timeout. When we come back, we're going to go to well, I love listening to Brady Kannon talk PGA. We're going to let Dave and Brady talk about PGA after day one of the Farmers at Torrey Pines. That plus best bets still to come. Stick around. Welcome back to Wager Talk. Scott, Brady, and Dave in studio. Best bets still to come in just a bit. But, the PGA, they kicked off the Farmers event on Thursday. Day one is in the books as we speak from Torrey Pines, and Tiger opened on the brutal 7,600-yard Torrey Pines South course. Even round 72, tied for 84th with a ton of golfers. And Brady, did you see anything today that leads you to believe that he's going to be competitive in the near future that may be a little bit different from when he's tried to come back the last couple of years?
I tell you what, I did, and it happened in about the last 4 holes. He really started hitting some shots where he looked like he was using his entire body of muscles. His back was getting into it. His legs were getting into it. It looked like he hit a wedge shot, I believe was on 16, that had that Tiger muscle back into it. It seemed like for the first 9, 10, 12 holes, he was a little bit tentative, and you just watching him, you kind of just cringe and worry about that back problem, obviously, that he has. But he seemed to kind of get into a groove and decided to step on the gas a little bit the last 4 or 5 holes of the golf tournament, and his swing started to look really good and powerful, and he played those last 4 or 5 holes really well. I think an even par round for him is a victory for him. He's probably giving himself a B or a B plus, and is ready for tomorrow with a positive frame of mind and a little bit of momentum going into Friday.
He looked like his confidence was back. He looked happy after the first day. And I noticed early on what you were saying. I noticed early on before I did the show with you, Dave, at ESPN here in Las Vegas at 2 in the afternoon. He'd already played about, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 holes at that point. But the first 9, the front 9, he looked like he wasn't putting any pressure on his back. He was doing everything with arms and legs and really protected his back. And I didn't get to see the last few holes, but you're the second person who I respect highly in the golf world who has said that I've heard today, that said that he started being all of Tiger the final 3 or 4 holes. Did you see anything in his swing that makes you think he's back in any kind of form?
Relatively speaking, no. And I'll tell you why. I think he can still be.
I don't mean winning majors like he was before, but I mean just competitive.
I think he looks like a guy who could do really well in the senior tour.
Okay.
The problem for him now is he's not getting any younger. He's in his 40s. He's had a lot of health issues. So you wonder about the durability. And thanks to Tiger, the new generation of golfers is absolutely sensational. I mean, these guys they're phenomenal players.
They work out the whole
great
thing.
Players.
Great shape.
They're in tremendous shape. They hit the ball a ton. And I just don't see that Tiger, I think, 2 or 3 rounds, maybe, but 4 grueling rounds, I don't think he can win at this level anymore. So I'm not talking majors. I'm talking about tournaments such as this. He can be on the leaderboard, but I just don't. I think he's going to end up being in that, we were talking about Bud Cauley earlier, who's a really good player, but just probably not good enough to win tournaments. I think that's where Tiger's going to be. The problem is, for Bud Cauley, that's okay, because nobody's going to pay much attention to him. But for Tiger, the pressure will continue to build because he's when's he finally going to go out there and make that big big push in the tournament, and I don't know if it's going to happen.
Not only that, Brady, but I mean, I was watching. I tweeted this out. I'm watching. The first hour or so, his first the front nine that he played and everything. Well, I'm getting ready to do a radio show on Thursday afternoon. I even tweeted out, I'm like, how much does the PGA really want Tiger to come back and at least be competitive? Because he was 98% of the Golf Channel's coverage,
which I enjoyed.
It was like 110th at the time, through the front nine. I have no problem with that either.
Everybody wanted to watch him today.
I want to see Tiger on Sunday.
And they're going to want to watch him tomorrow, too. And, Dave, you're talking big picture. Can Tiger win again? Can he win a major again? His health, his age, and his competitiveness against, the rest of the kids in the world right now. Smaller picture, though, just looking at this tournament, those last 4 holes, he put together some really nice Tiger-looking type swings, and I think he can make the cut tomorrow. I think he can shoot 2 or 3 under on the North course. I think he got his legs under him a little bit today, and like I say, probably walks away with a little confidence. I think he can make the cut. As far as my big picture take, I did a preview at the beginning of the year, and the article is up on WagerTalk, where I felt Tiger would probably play in about a dozen tournaments and probably eclipse the top 10 2 or 3 times. I do think he'll win again, but I do not think it'll be this year.
Tony Finau leads the way after day one, Brady, and I'll let you guys hash this one out. We'll start with you, but what do you expect to see out of Finau and those close to him in the standings over the next few days?
Well, typically a guy comes back to the pack a little bit after shooting 65 like that, and he's going to have to tackle the South Course tomorrow. But Finau's had a tremendous amount of success at Torrey Pines. He was actually, I talk about the article that I wrote on WagerTalk, he was actually my pick this week to win at about 30 or 35 to 1, so it was nice to see what he did today. He's only played, this is only his 4th time playing the Farmers Insurance Open, and prior to that he's finished 24th, 18th, and then last year 4th place. So this guy is trending nicely. He's a massive bomber of the golf ball, and he hits greens in regulations. His putting is a little bit suspect, but obviously he knows this course very well. So he gets the South Course tomorrow, which he's had success on. I think if he can shoot about 2 under tomorrow, he's going to be just fine for the weekend.
Yeah, I think he might actually be, because he's got the easier course tomorrow. I think Finau right now is the favorite.
Well, he's got the South tomorrow.
Oh no, that's right. He's got he's got the longer.
So he's got the
longer
and they're playing very evenly this year. They're both tough.
He hits the ball a mile anyway, so it's really not going to impact him as much as it might.
It hasn't seemed to in the past, and that's why I say if he can just not completely go south and shoot a couple under par, I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun. This is the old Hope.
No, that was last week.
Williams,
the Andy Williams, correct.
Excuse me, the Hope was last week. I wish they'd still keep those guys' names on it.
I know.
And I like the idea that it's now that they're using both courses.
Yes.
It makes it more fun to me, because you can size up how they did on what is supposed to be the easier course as opposed to the tougher course, and maybe make some matchup bets based on that.
It adds to the handicap, absolutely. Yes. In fact, the last 7 winners in a row at the Farmers have started their tournament on the South Course and gone to the North Course the next day. Tony Finau started on the North Course, so we'll see if he's going to buck that trend.
What do you make the difference between the two courses? Like, let's say 2 shots better on the North and the South, or
it used to be
a year ago.
Today,
used to be quite a lot.
Looks a little bit closer now, doesn't it?
Used to be about 4 shots, and Tom Weiskopf came in before last year's tournament. He flipped the 9s around, he removed a lot of bunkers, and then he positioned some bunkers in more penal spots in the fairway. He changed the greens. They're all bent grass greens now, and last year it only was a stroke and a half different from the South Course, and today I believe it was about even.
Was it?
So, which is really cool. Now you've got 2 brute golf courses that these guys are having to tackle, and like you said, Dave, it's kind of cool where one's easy and you figure that into the handicap. Well, now, it's kind of like just a toss-up.
Well, that's right, and it does mean the good news is that if you took a golfer who didn't have a particularly good opening round today and is on the supposedly easier course
right
tomorrow, or was on the supposedly easier course today, he's not out of the tournament yet.
Right, exactly.
So we'll see what happens. I have 2 guys that I played. Patrick Cantley made a little bit of a mess out of the early portion of the back 9, but finished pretty well, and I think he ended up 3 under, so he's in good position. And Xander Schauffele, who's from the area,
yes,
the San Diego State guy, he's had problems on this course the last couple of years, but he closed well, and he's 2 under, so my guys are in there for the weekend.
Well, and Cantley's familiar with the course, too, as a UCLA graduate.
I think Cantley's I
Very
would not
good player.
be shocked if he wins a major this year. I think Cantley's the next guy to get into that elite group.
Well, another prediction that I made at the beginning of the year was that Tommy Fleetwood would crack the top 10 in the world rankings, and he just won last week. And Tony Finau was a guy that I felt would crack the top 25 in the world rankings, and if he can get a win this week, he just might be there.
If you see me tweeting out PGA Marks plays, that's my brother who happens to be the golf handicapper and bettor in this family. He's got Tony Finau. He's got 4 players, and that's the best chance he's got, obviously, at the top of the leaderboard. Outside of Finau, I know you liked him, and you called it before, or your prediction was that he was going to win before the tournament began in your article. But either one of you, Dave just mentioned his 2 golfers who you think can come from behind that you believe is worth maybe putting a couple of bucks on and that haven't quite come to the forefront yet, or maybe gotten any notice yet, that you think have a good solid shot to play well the next 3 days and walk away a winner?
I don't know what his in-game number is right now to win the tournament, but don't count out Jon Rahm. I mean, this guy is that good. He's the defending champ. He won last week. I believe he finished the day at 4 under par today. Started off with a little bit of a struggle, and 4 under par, you're 3 shots off the lead, but really you're right in the mix at 4 under. He did that on the South course today, so he gets the quote-unquote easier course tomorrow. I felt he was a good bet at the beginning of the week at 8-1, and maybe you can get a little bit better than that right now. So he'd be my guy I'd be continuing to look at.
Yeah, Francisco Molinari is going to be given a shot with a good first round today, and a guy I like, and I think if he gets out there on a regular basis this year, he's going to make some noise. It's Peter Uihlein.
Very good.
This guy can
Very
play,
good.
and he had a good first round
Absolutely.
today. He's going to steal a tournament somewhere this year. This guy's going to break through and win an event.
And you're talking about Uihlein and Cantley. I'll tell you, a young kid out of the University of Oregon that you want to take a peek at. He, I believe, shot 1 under par today, but this guy is one of the new young guns that's going to be outstanding, and that's Austin Wise. Look at Wise is an up-and-comer in the PGA world of things. This guy is the real deal.
He's Brady Kannon. You can follow him at Las Vegas Golfer. He's the newest member of the WagerTalk.com roster, and I'm looking forward to reading his PGA stuff each and every week throughout the course of the year. And don't forget, Brady also knows a thing or two about the NFL, being part of a team that won the Westgate Super Contest a few years ago. So we'll use his expertise also once we get back into football season again next year. All right, guys, when we come back, quick timeout, then we're going to talk about some best bets from Brady, from Dave, and myself. Stick around. Welcome back to Wager Talk Best of Bets, and we're going to start with Brady Kannon. As I mentioned earlier in the show, you can follow Brady at Las Vegas Golf. I got to ask you, at Las Vegas Golfer, excuse me. I was starting to get all excited and jump into something here. Listen, I know you're the golfer of the 3 of us. Dave's pretty good. Once in a while, I can hit well. Sometimes I fall apart, and more often than not, I fall apart. And we were talking earlier on a radio show with Dave that we don't want to take on you unless it's mini golf. But I got to ask you, because I think I've probably done something on a golf course you have never done before. I know Dave has never done it before. We talked about this on radio earlier today also in Las Vegas.
I've never done this.
I was out we're at Bears Best a couple years ago, and it's me and Jim Feist, a couple other guys, and we're about 8-9 holes into the round, and I'm teeing it up. Everybody's like where they're supposed to be, nobody's talking, nobody's getting in the way, and I hit with my driver, and I mean I whacked it good. It comes off the tee. It's got to be doing 300 miles an hour. It takes a direct line to the ball wash. It hits the ball wash, and it caroms probably 400 miles an hour at Jim Feist's head. He hits the dirt. Thank God he's in shape, right? Jim's probably 68, 69 at the time. It's been a few years ago. But he's like 68, 69 going on about 25. Boy. Thank God he's still quick and has the reflexes, because he hits the dirt. I'm going, holy crap. It was too quick to yell for.
Right.
He just stands up and looks at me and he goes, you have talents on the course I've never seen before. I know you've never hit the ball wash off the tee.
No, thankfully I have never done that. I've actually been hit by a ball once before, though.
Been hit.
Yeah.
I can still remember it, too. It's a long time ago. It was in Brookline, Mass. And I remember who did it. I won't mention his name. Guy's named Tommy. And he kind of, we were well ahead of him on this par 4 that we're playing, or met him in par 5. And he was a pretty good player. So he kind of bent one. And I could see the ball coming at me, right? and I'm trying to outrun it because it's slicing.
That's the worst when it's slicing at you.
And I couldn't make it, and it hit me right in the back.
Oh.
So
mine kind of knuckleballed. You know, it wasn't like a guy launched one and I got, nailed pretty good, but it was coming at me pretty good and on a line drive, and I was up ahead in the fairway or whatever, and I saw it coming at me, and it kind of started knuckling, so I was like, I didn't know to go left or right,
exactly.
And I just kind of at the end turned, and it caught me right in the back of the bicep. But yeah, it's a scary thing sometimes because those will take you out in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember who I was with.
And when it's slicing, you're kind of doing the dance back and forth.
The only thing I remember was an ex-pro athlete, and I just can't remember who it was for some reason. But somebody on some hole let a shot get way away from him, and we're sitting in a golf
Was this
cart.
the pro line years?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe Jack Snow or Bob Golick, maybe, I was thinking.
It wasn't Golick.
No?
I wonder if it was Jack.
Might have been Jack Snow. He used to golf with us once in a while.
We're sitting in the golf cart, waiting on this hole, and all of a sudden the ball comes into the golf cart and somehow missed the post and hit right in the golf cart. It's like, what the?
Starts rattling around.
What the hell just happened here? No four, no nothing.
Scares you as much as it would have hurt.
Oh, man.
I've been sitting in the cart before with a playing partner, and all of a sudden that hits inside the golf, and it's rattling around in there. You're like, you're just freaking out. Anyway, good stuff, guys. All right, he's at Las Vegas Golfer. You can find his work at WagerTalk.com. In fact, he's got season-long packages in golf, weekly, monthly. I recommend the season-long package, best price for your money, and Phoenix Open coming up next week. But you do have a best bet for us, and you're going to the College Hardwood this weekend.
Yeah, you guys were talking college hoops in here, so I figured I'd pick one out. Obviously, we don't have a football game this weekend, and golf is already underway. But I was mentioning earlier that I really like the SEC conference this year in basketball, and not so much at the top. Florida's down a little bit, still a solid team. Obviously, Kentucky down a little bit, but in the middle, you've got LSU and Ole Miss and Alabama, and Auburn has just been outstanding as of late. And I'm looking at Oklahoma at Alabama on Saturday, and I got to figure Alabama is going to be catching at least 5 points. They might even be able to get 6 in this game. We'll see what the line comes out as, but I think this is a pretty good spot for the home dog. Obviously, Oklahoma is a very good team, but I think Bama is better than people realize, and they beat LSU on the road this year and also beat Auburn. So I think it's a good play with the Crimson Tide catching points against Oklahoma this Saturday.
I like some of these cross-conference games that are this late in the season when you're mixed in the middle of the year, because I do tend to look for the home teams before anything else in those situations. I do miss bracket busters. Yeah, I do miss bracket busters. What do you got for us? You're at Dave Cokin, by the way, on Twitter.
Yes, I am.
At Dave Cokin. His work is at WagerTalk.com. What do you got going this weekend, and what's your best bet?
I haven't done my Saturday work to any great extent yet. The 3 games I worked on were 3 we talked about because I knew we were going to talk about them. So I'll just, among those games, I think West Virginia is the one I like the most. I think their style of play could create some problems for Kentucky. I think the raucous atmosphere in Morgantown could create some problems for Kentucky. And I think West Virginia, I know that they beat me a couple weeks ago because I was on them against Kansas, and that was a disappointing result for me after they had that big lead. But I think letting that lead get away was more of a fluke. I think this is a really good team at home, and I think West Virginia is going to get Kentucky by 7 or 8 points over the weekend, and that should be enough to cover the spread.
I like both of those plays. I'm going to go to the Octagon, guys. I usually stick in basketball for my weekend radio best bet, but you heard Matt Holt earlier when I asked him how he thought about this Silva-Pichel fight, Joaquim Silva, the Brazilian, against Vince Pichel. And when Matt and I have lined up, well, Matt doesn't need my help. First of all, Matt goes 4-1 every UFC card, if not better, it seems like. He just had a great UFC card this past weekend where he swept the plays he gave us on Las Vegas Sportsline. When we used to do a show on SB Nation, Matt and I and Marco D'Angelo, we did a 2-hour show every Thursday back in the day. And whenever I said, boy, I like this fighter, if Matt was on that side, it normally won. If Matt wasn't on that side, I normally passed. It was he's just very good at what he does. So I asked him last week about a fight. It was a small underdog. We won that one. You heard me earlier tonight. I asked him about Silva over Pichel, and he agreed with it. Now you can get Silva around $1.15, about $1.15 favorite. I saw as high as $1.20, but a little bit less than that if you shop around. It's going to be a close fight for a little while, maybe a little back and forth. But Silva's an up-and-comer, 10-0 record, not as young as his record would make you think. He's about a 28-year-old fighter, and I still think he's undervalued. Matt agreed with that also. it's just a situation where when you get a guy who's starting to become an up-and-comer, you got to make sure he's not matched up against a guy who has a ton of experience. And yeah, Vince Pichel has that. But again, Silva's a little bit older with a great MMA record, solid Muay Thai skills, incredible in the octagon with his Muay Thai skills. And again, I like him here to get the win. I think it's going to be close early on, and I think Silva will find a way to win this game over Pichel. That's my best bet. You can follow me at Scott Wins. My work is at WagerTalk.com. And as much as I like doing all those ESPN weekend shows, guys, I'm off this week. Oh, my gosh, that feels good to say. Getting up at 5 a.m. after you've been up until 2 a.m. handicapping games Friday night, Saturday morning. I love you, Mel Kiper, Dari Doka, but I love having the weekend off this week. So don't tune in. Well, do tune into those for the other guys, but I won't be back on until next Saturday for the Super Bowl. For Brady Kannon, for Dave Cokin, for Marco D'Angelo, who returns next week, I'm Scott Spreitzer. Put him in the win column. We'll talk to you again next Thursday.
And I bid you good night, good night, good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.